The morning sun filtered through the heavy curtains of Clarence's house as Camilla Parker Bowles sat at her vanity table, staring at her reflection in the ornate mirror. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for the small velvet box hidden behind her jewelry collection. Inside lay a ring that had haunted her thoughts for decades, a stunning sapphire and diamond piece that once belonged to Princess Diana. The ring was not just any piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of love, loss, and secrets that had shaped the British royal family for years. Diana had worn it during some of her most public appearances, and its disappearance after her death had remained a mystery to the world. Only Camilla knew the truth about how it came to be in her possession. As she held the ring up to the light, memories flooded back to that fateful day in 1997 when everything changed. The car crash in Paris had shocked the world, but for Camilla, it meant something entirely different. It meant that the woman who had stood between her and Charles was finally gone. What the public didn't know was that Diana had given this very ring to a trusted friend just days before her death, asking them to ensure it never fell into the wrong hands. That friend had been Sarah, Duchess of York, who had secretly passed the ring to Camilla years later with a cryptic message from Diana herself. Tell her that love always finds a way, but truth has a way of surfacing when least expected. Sarah had whispered these words to Camilla during a private gathering at Balmoral, pressing the small box into her hands when no one was watching. Camilla had kept the ring hidden ever since, never daring to wear it publicly or even mention its existence to Charles. She knew that if he discovered she possessed one of Diana's most precious pieces, it would reopen wounds that had barely begun to heal. Their marriage, though officially recognized, was still fragile in the eyes of the public and even within the royal family itself. The irony wasn't lost on her. Here she was, the woman who had been blamed for the breakdown of Charles and Diana's marriage, now the keeper of one of Diana's most intimate possessions. The weight of this secret had grown heavier with each passing year, especially as she watched Prince William and Prince Harry struggle with their mother's legacy. Charles had been in his study all morning, preparing for an important meeting with the Archbishop of Canterbury about upcoming charitable initiatives. Their relationship had found a comfortable rhythm over the years, built on shared interests and mutual respect rather than the passionate romance that had defined his relationship with Diana. Camilla understood her role and had accepted it with grace, but this ring represented everything complicated about their union. The house staff moved quietly through the corridors, well-trained in maintaining the discretion that royal life demanded. Mrs. Henderson, Camilla's personal assistant, knocked softly on the bedroom door before entering with the morning's correspondence. "Your Royal Highness, the invitations for next week's garden party have arrived for your approval," she said, placing a silver tray on the side table. Camilla quickly closed the velvet box and slipped it back into its hiding place. "Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. I'll review them shortly." As the assistant left, Camilla's mind wandered to the upcoming family gathering at Windsor Castle. William and Kate would be there with their children, as would Harry and his family. These events were always challenging, filled with unspoken tensions and carefully managed public appearances. But, lately, Camilla had noticed something different in Kate's behavior. The Duchess of Cambridge had been asking subtle questions about family history and heirlooms. During their last private conversation, Kate had mentioned her interest in preserving the memory of Princess Diana for her children. She spoke about wanting them to understand their grandmother's legacy beyond the public narrative. "I want them to know who she really was," Kate had said, her blue eyes serious and thoughtful. "Not just the Princess of Wales, but the mother, the woman who loved their father so deeply." These words had struck Camilla like a physical blow. She realized that Kate was searching for something, some connection to Diana that went beyond photographs and public records. The younger woman's intuition was sharp, and Camilla feared that Kate might be getting closer to uncovering secrets that were meant to stay buried. The ring in the velvet box seemed to pulse with energy, as if Diana's spirit was somehow connected to it. Camilla had always been sensitive to such things, believing in signs and spiritual connections that others might dismiss as coincidence. She couldn't shake the feeling that Diana was somehow orchestrating events from beyond, ensuring that her sons would eventually learn the complete truth about their mother's final days. Charles appeared in the doorway, his tall frame filling the space as he adjusted his cufflinks. Even in his 70s, he maintained a regal bearing that came naturally to him, though the years had added lines around his eyes and silver to his hair. "Darling, are you ready for lunch with the foundation board?" he asked, his voice carrying the slight impatience that often emerged when he was focused on his charitable work. Almost, Camilla replied, forcing a smile. I was just reviewing some correspondence. Charles approached and kissed her cheek gently, a gesture that had become routine but still carried genuine affection. You seem distracted lately. Is everything all right? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Camilla looked into his eyes and saw the man she had loved for so many years, the one whose happiness had cost them both dearly. How could she tell him about the ring? How could she explain that she had been keeping a piece of Diana hidden away, knowing how much it would hurt him to realize that his first wife had orchestrated this final secret? I'm fine, Charles. Just thinking about the children's visit next week. He nodded, accepting her explanation, though his eyes suggested he sensed there was more to her mood. William mentioned that Kate has been researching family history. She's very thorough in everything she does. The words sent a chill through Camilla's heart. If Kate was indeed researching family history, how long would it be before she stumbled upon evidence of the ring's existence? Diana had been meticulous about documenting her jewelry, and there were photographs, insurance records, and personal letters that could eventually surface. After Charles left for his meeting, Camilla returned to the velvet box. She opened it once more and studied the ring carefully. The sapphire was a deep blue that seemed to hold secrets within its depths, surrounded by diamonds that caught the light like tears. Diana had chosen this ring for special occasions when she wanted to make a statement about her independence and strength. There was something else in the box that Camilla had almost forgotten about, a small folded piece of paper that Sarah had included when she passed along the ring. With trembling fingers, Camilla unfolded the note and read Diana's final message about the ring. This ring holds the truth about love and sacrifice. When the time is right, it will find its way to those who need to understand. Don't let fear keep the truth buried forever. The children deserve to know that love is more powerful than any crown or title. D. The message was written in Diana's distinctive handwriting, confirmed by the small rose she always drew next to her initial. Reading it again after all these years, Camilla finally understood what Diana had intended. This wasn't about revenge or causing pain. It was about ensuring that William and Harry knew the complete story of their parents' relationship, including the parts that had been carefully hidden from public view. Diana wanted her sons to understand that despite everything that had happened, love had been at the center of all the drama. Charles's love for Camilla, Diana's love for her children, and even Diana's complex feelings about the woman who had become her rival. The ring was meant to be a bridge between the past and the future, a way for the family to heal from decades of secrets and half-truths. As afternoon turned to evening, Camilla made a decision that would change everything. She couldn't continue to carry this burden alone. The weight of the secret was affecting her relationship with Charles and preventing the family from moving forward. But she also couldn't simply hand over the ring without proper context. She decided to write her own letter, one that would accompany the ring when the time came to reveal its existence. In this letter, she would explain how the ring came to be in her possession, what Diana's final wishes had been, and why she had kept it secret for so long. It would be her attempt to bridge the gap between the past and the present, to help the family understand that even in the midst of their greatest conflicts, love had somehow survived. That night, as she lay next to Charles listening to his steady breathing, Camilla stared at the ceiling and wondered how much longer she could keep this secret. Kate's research was becoming more focused, and it was only a matter of time before someone discovered evidence of the ring's existence. When that moment came, Camilla wanted to be ready with the truth rather than being forced into revelations by circumstances beyond her control. The ring, hidden away in its velvet box, seemed to pulse with the weight of history and the promise of revelations yet to come. Diana's final gift to her family was about to be unwrapped, whether Camilla was ready or not. The only question now was whether the truth would bring healing or create new wounds that might never fully heal. In the distance, a clock chimed midnight, marking the beginning of a new day that would bring them all one step closer to the moment when secrets would finally be revealed and the royal family would have to confront the complete truth about love, loss, and the prices they had all paid for their choices. The morning would bring new challenges, new questions from Kate, and new pressure on Camilla to decide whether to continue hiding Diana's final secret or to trust that love really was more powerful than fear. The ring waited patiently in its hiding place, ready to fulfill Diana's final wish when the moment was right. The week passed slowly, with each day bringing Camilla closer to the family gathering she had been dreading. Kate's phone calls had become more frequent, filled with questions about royal traditions and family heirlooms that made Camilla increasingly uncomfortable. The younger woman's interest seemed innocent enough on the surface, but there was a persistence to her inquiries that suggested deeper motivations. "Camilla, I've been looking through some old photographs with the children," Kate had said during their most recent conversation. "George asked about his grandmother's jewelry, and I realized how little I actually know about the pieces she treasured most. The boys should understand their heritage, don't you think?" The question had hung in the air like a trap. Camilla had managed to deflect with vague comments about contacting the royal jewelers for historical records, but she knew her evasions were becoming more obvious. Kate was too intelligent and too determined to be put off indefinitely. Charles had noticed the change in atmosphere as well. During their morning walks through the gardens at Highgrove, he had begun asking pointed questions about Camilla's mood and whether something specific was troubling her. Their conversations had taken on a careful quality, as if they were both dancing around subjects that neither wanted to address directly. "You know, darling," Charles had said just yesterday. "William mentioned that Kate seems quite focused on family history lately. She's been asking the palace archivists about various pieces from Diana's collection. Apparently, there are some items that weren't properly catalogued after." He had paused, unable to finish the sentence. Camilla's heart had raced. If Kate was working with the palace archivists, it was only a matter of time before someone noticed discrepancies in the jewelry records. Diana had been meticulous about documenting her possessions, and the missing ring would eventually be discovered if Kate continued her research. The day of the Windsor Castle gathering arrived with the crisp air of early autumn. Camilla dressed carefully, choosing an understated blue suit that she hoped would help her blend into the background. The velvet box containing Diana's ring remained hidden in her private chambers at Clarence House, but its presence haunted her thoughts as if she were carrying it with her. The castle was alive with activity as family members arrived throughout the morning. William and Kate came with their 3 children, their faces bright with the joy of a family outing. Harry and Meghan had flown in from California, bringing their own children and the subtle tension that always accompanied their rare visits to England. Camilla watched from an upstairs window as the family gathered in the courtyard. The children ran around the ancient stones, their laughter echoing off the walls that had witnessed centuries of royal drama. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine what it would be like if all the secrets were finally in the open, if the family could simply enjoy these moments without the weight of hidden truths. Kate looked particularly radiant that day, her dark hair shining in the sunlight as she helped organize the children for photographs. But Camilla noticed the way Kate's eyes moved constantly, taking in details of the castle's furnishings and artwork. Even during family time, she was observing, learning, searching for something. The formal lunch was held in the state dining room, with its magnificent table that could seat dozens. The conversation flowed easily enough, covering safe topics like the children's school activities and upcoming royal engagements. But Camilla felt as if she were watching everything through a fog of anxiety, waiting for someone to say something that would force her hand. It was during the dessert course that Kate made her move. "Charles, I've been working on a special project with the children," Kate began, her voice casual but her eyes intent. "We're creating a memory book about their grandmother Diana, something they can treasure as they grow up." Charles's fork paused halfway to his mouth. The mention of Diana always created a moment of stillness at family gatherings. A brief pause as everyone processed the complex emotions her memory evoked. "That sounds lovely, Kate," he replied carefully. "Diana would have wanted her grandchildren to know her story." "That's exactly what I thought," Kate continued. "But I've discovered that there are some gaps in the historical record. Some of her favorite pieces of jewelry seem to have disappeared after her death. The children keep asking about a particular ring they've seen in photographs, a sapphire and diamond piece that she wore to several important events." Camilla's blood turned to ice. She could feel her face losing color and hoped that no one would notice her reaction. Across the table, William was nodding thoughtfully, clearly supportive of his wife's project. "I remember that ring," William said softly. "Mother wore it to my school play when I was about 8. She told me it was special because it represented hope for the future." The words hit Camilla like physical blows. Diana had shared meaningful moments with that ring, moments that her sons remembered and treasured. How could Camilla continue to keep it hidden, knowing that it held such precious memories for William and Harry? Harry leaned forward, his eyes lighting up with recognition. "Yes, I remember it too. She wore it to the hospital when I broke my arm." She said the blue reminded her of the sky after a storm, that no matter how difficult things became, there was always something beautiful waiting on the other side. Charles had gone very quiet, his eyes distant as he processed his son's memories. Camilla realized that these were stories he had never heard, intimate moments between Diana and their children that revealed a side of her he might not have fully understood. "Have you found any trace of this ring in the official records?" Charles asked Kate, his voice carefully neutral. Kate shook her head, but Camilla could see the determination in her expression. "That's what's so puzzling. The ring appears in numerous photographs and is mentioned in several of Diana's personal letters to friends, but there's no record of what happened to it after her death. It's as if it simply vanished." "Perhaps it was lost in the chaos following the accident," suggested Harry, though his tone indicated he didn't believe this explanation. "No," Kate replied firmly. "Diana's possessions were carefully catalogued and distributed according to her will. This ring was too important to her to have been misplaced accidentally. Someone knows what happened to it." The silence that followed was deafening. Camilla could feel everyone's eyes on her, though she wasn't sure if she was imagining the scrutiny or if her guilty expression was giving her away. She took a sip of wine to buy herself time, her hand trembling slightly as she lifted the glass. "These historical mysteries can be fascinating," she managed to say, hoping her voice sounded steadier than she felt. "Sometimes things are simply mislabeled or stored in unexpected places." Kate's eyes met hers across the table, and Camilla saw something flash in the younger woman's gaze. Recognition, perhaps, or suspicion. It was only for a moment, but it was enough to confirm Camilla's worst fears. Kate suspected something, and she wasn't going to let this mystery rest unsolved. The conversation moved on to other topics, but the atmosphere had changed. There was an undercurrent of tension that hadn't been there before, a sense that important things were being left unsaid. Camilla noticed that Charles kept glancing at her throughout the rest of the meal, his brow furrowed with concern. After lunch, the family dispersed to various activities around the castle. The children went to explore the gardens with their nannies, while the adults broke into smaller groups. Camilla found herself alone with Charles in the library, surrounded by centuries of royal history bound in leather and gold. "That was interesting, what Kate said about Diana's ring," Charles commented, settling into a leather chair near the fireplace. Camilla's heart raced. "Yes, she seems very thorough in her research." "She does indeed." Charles studied her face carefully. "You seem upset by the conversation. Is there something about Diana's jewelry that troubles you?" The question hung between them like a challenge. Camilla realized that this might be her chance to tell Charles the truth, to unburden herself of the secret she had carried for so long. But, looking at his face, seeing the pain that the mention of Diana still caused him, she couldn't bring herself to add to his burden. "I just find these discussions about the past difficult sometimes," she said instead. "There's so much pain associated with that period in all our lives." Charles nodded slowly, but his eyes suggested he wasn't entirely convinced by her explanation. "Kate means well, you know. She wants the children to understand their heritage. And perhaps it would be healthy for all of us to be more open about Diana's memory instead of treating it as something forbidden." His words carried a weight that Camilla hadn't expected. For years, they had built their marriage on the foundation of not discussing Diana in detail, of letting the past remain buried. Now Charles seemed to be suggesting that this approach might not be the healthiest for their family. "What are you saying, Charles?" "I'm saying that perhaps it's time to stop being afraid of Diana's memory. She was a part of our family, the mother of my sons, and she always will be. Trying to pretend otherwise hasn't served any of us well." Camilla felt tears threatening to fall. Charles was right, of course, but he didn't understand the full complexity of the situation. He didn't know about the ring or Diana's final message or the impossible position Camilla had been placed in by circumstance and Sarah's well-meaning actions. "You're right," she whispered. "But some truths are more complicated than others." Charles reached for her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "What truths, darling? What is it that you're not telling me?" Before Camilla could answer, they were interrupted by the sound of voices in the corridor outside the library. Kate and William were approaching, their conversation clearly audible through the partially open door. "I know she knows something, William," Kate was saying. Her reaction to my questions about the ring was too strong to be coincidental. "Be careful, darling," William replied. "Camilla has been through enough over the years. If she does know something about Mother's jewelry, there might be a good reason why she hasn't mentioned it. But don't you see? That's exactly why we need to know the truth. If there are still secrets about your mother's possessions, about her final wishes, then we owe it to the children to uncover them." George and Charlotte and Louis deserved to know their grandmother's complete story. Camilla felt the walls closing in around her. Kate wasn't going to let this matter rest, and William was beginning to support her quest for answers. Soon, they would be asking direct questions that she couldn't evade, demanding explanations that would force her to reveal everything. Charles squeezed her hand gently. "They're right, you know," he said quietly. "Whatever secrets we've been keeping, it might be time to bring them into the light." As footsteps approached the library door, Camilla realized that her time was running out. The careful balance she had maintained for years was about to collapse, and when it did, everyone would have to face truths they might not be ready to handle. The ring in its velvet box seemed to call to her from across the miles, Diana's final gift demanding to be acknowledged at last. The days following the Windsor Castle gathering were filled with a tension that seemed to permeate every corner of royal life. Camilla found herself unable to concentrate on her usual duties, her mind constantly returning to Kate's determined pursuit of the truth about Diana's missing ring. Phone calls from the palace archivists had begun arriving daily, each one bringing new requests for information about jewelry records from the late 1990s. Kate's research had taken on a systematic quality that made Camilla increasingly nervous. The Duchess of Cambridge had enlisted the help of Diana's former personal secretary, who had provided detailed lists of the princess's favorite pieces. They had also contacted several of Diana's close friends from that period, many of whom were surprisingly willing to share their memories and photographs. "She's being very methodical," Charles observed during one of their morning conversations. He had been fielding calls from William, who was keeping him updated on Kate's progress. "Apparently, she's created a comprehensive timeline of Diana's public appearances in the months before her death, cross-referencing them with jewelry records and personal photographs." Camilla's coffee cup rattled against its saucer as she set it down. "That seems like quite an undertaking." William is impressed by her thoroughness. He says she's treating it like an important historical project rather than simple curiosity. Charles paused, studying Camilla's face. He also mentioned that Kate has some theories about why certain pieces might have gone missing. The words sent a chill through Camilla's entire body. If Kate had theories, it meant she was moving beyond simple research into active investigation. How long would it be before those theories led her to the right conclusions? That afternoon, Camilla made a decision that she knew was risky but felt increasingly necessary. She drove to Sarah Ferguson's countryside home, hoping to find guidance from the one person who truly understood the complexity of her situation. Sarah had been living quietly since her divorce from Prince Andrew, focusing on her writing and charitable work, but she had always maintained her friendship with those who had been caught in the crossfire of royal scandals. Sarah's home was a modest but comfortable estate surrounded by rolling hills and ancient oak trees. She greeted Camilla at the door with a warm embrace, though her eyes immediately registered the stress written across her old friend's face. "Camilla, darling, you look as if you haven't slept in weeks," Sarah said, leading her to a cozy sitting room filled with photographs and books. "What's brought you out here in such a state?" Camilla didn't waste time with pleasantries. "It's about Diana's ring, Sarah. The one you gave me all those years ago." Kate is asking questions, doing research. She's getting too close to the truth. Sarah's expression grew serious as she poured tea from a delicate china service. "I wondered when this day would come. Kate is a clever woman, and she loves those boys deeply. Of course, she would want to uncover every piece of their mother's story. But you don't understand the position this puts me in," Camilla said, her voice rising with emotion. "If Charles discovers that I've been hiding one of Diana's most precious possessions, it could destroy everything we've built together. And if William and Harry learn the truth, they might see it as some kind of betrayal of their mother's memory." Sarah sat back in her chair, her fingers wrapped around her teacup as she considered the situation. "Tell me, have you read Diana's note recently? The one that came with the ring?" Camilla nodded. "Many times. But I'm not sure I understand what she really wanted me to do with it." Diana was always more strategic than people gave her credit for, Sarah reflected. She knew that her death would leave many questions unanswered, many relationships unhealed. That ring wasn't just a piece of jewelry to her. It was a tool for bringing truth to light when the time was right. But what if the truth causes more pain than healing? Sarah leaned forward, her eyes intense. Diana believed that secrets were more dangerous than difficult truths. She lived with the consequences of hidden relationships and unspoken feelings for years. The ring was her way of ensuring that her sons would eventually understand the complete story of their parents' marriage, including the parts that had been carefully concealed from public view. As they talked, Camilla began to understand that she had been thinking about the situation all wrong. She had viewed the ring as a burden, a secret that could destroy her relationship with Charles. But Diana had intended it to be a bridge between the past and the future, a way for the family to heal from years of partial truths and careful omissions. "There's something else you should know," Sarah continued. "Diana didn't give me that ring randomly. She chose me because she knew I would understand the importance of timing. She wanted it to surface when the family was ready to handle the truth, not when it would cause maximum damage. How am I supposed to know when that time has come?" "I think Kate's research is your answer," Sarah replied. "The fact that she's actively seeking the truth suggests that the family is ready to confront the complete story of Diana's life and death. William and Harry are adults now, with families of their own. They have the emotional maturity to understand that their parents' marriage was complicated, that love can exist alongside pain and conflict." Driving back to Clarence's house that evening, Camilla felt as if she were seeing the situation through new eyes. Perhaps Diana's final gift wasn't meant to be kept hidden indefinitely. Perhaps it was meant to surface exactly when it had, when Kate's love for her children and her desire to honor Diana's memory had driven her to search for missing pieces of the story. But accepting this possibility didn't make the practical aspects any easier. How could she reveal the ring's existence without appearing to have deliberately deceived Charles and the boys? How could she explain years of silence without seeming callous or calculating? The answer came to her as she pulled into the driveway of Clarence's house. She would have to trust in the same strategy that Diana had used: careful timing and complete honesty. She would need to tell Charles the truth before anyone else discovered it, giving him the chance to process the information privately before it became a family discussion. That night, after the household staff had retired and the house had settled into quiet stillness, Camilla made her decision. She retrieved the velvet box from its hiding place and carried it to the sitting room where Charles was reading government papers by the fireplace. "Charles, there's something I need to show you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He looked up from his papers, immediately sensing the gravity of her tone. "What is it, darling?" Camilla sat beside him on the sofa, the velvet box trembling in her hands. "It's about Diana's ring, the one Kate has been searching for." Charles's entire body went rigid. "You know something about it?" "I have it, Charles. I've had it for years." She opened the box, revealing the sapphire and diamond ring that had haunted her dreams for so long. The silence that followed was devastating. Charles stared at the ring as if he were seeing a ghost, his face cycling through emotions that Camilla couldn't fully read. Shock, confusion, hurt, and something that might have been relief all flickered across his features. "How?" he asked finally, his voice hoarse. Camilla told him everything. She explained about Sarah's visit to Balmoral, about Diana's final message, about the years of carrying this secret alone. She showed him Diana's note, watching as he read his first wife's final words about love and truth, and the importance of his children understanding their complete heritage. "She wanted you to have this," Camilla said when she finished her explanation. "Not me. But circumstances made me the keeper of it until the right moment came." Charles was quiet for a long time, turning the ring over in his hands as if trying to understand its weight. When he finally spoke, his voice was filled with a complexity of emotions that surprised Camilla. "She was extraordinary, even in death," he said softly. "Still trying to heal relationships, still thinking about what was best for William and Harry. Are you angry with me for keeping it secret?" Charles looked at her with eyes that held more understanding than she had expected. "How could I be angry? You were put in an impossible position. Diana knew that this ring would be difficult for me to see, difficult for all of us to discuss. But she also knew that someday we would need to face these truths together. Kate's research is getting closer to the truth. She's going to discover the ring's existence soon, with or without our involvement. Then, we need to be the ones to control how this information comes to light," Charles said decisively. "We'll tell William and Harry ourselves, explain the circumstances, and let them decide how to share this with Kate and the children." Camilla felt a weight lifting from her shoulders that she hadn't realized she was carrying. For years, she had imagined that revealing the ring would destroy her marriage to Charles. But, instead, it seemed to be opening a door to deeper honesty between them. "There's one more thing," Charles said, still studying the ring. "Diana was right about the children deserving to know their complete heritage. This ring represents more than just her memory. It represents the complexity of love and family and the possibility that even the most difficult relationships can find resolution." As they sat together in the firelight, the ring resting between them like a bridge between past and present. Camilla realized that Diana's final gift was already working its magic. The truth wasn't destroying their marriage. It was strengthening it by removing the last barriers to complete honesty between them. Tomorrow, they would begin the process of sharing this truth with William and Harry. They would face whatever consequences emerged from years of necessary secrets. But tonight, for the first time in decades, Camilla felt free from the weight of carrying Diana's final message alone. The ring caught the firelight, its sapphire depths seeming to hold all the love and pain and hope of the royal family's complicated history. Diana's final gift was about to be complete, and healing could finally begin. The morning after Camilla's revelation to Charles brought an unusual quiet to Clarence House. Both of them had slept little, their minds processing the implications of finally bringing Diana's ring into the open. Charles had spent much of the night staring at the ceiling, occasionally reaching over to touch the velvet box that now sat on his bedside table like a small monument to complicated truths. They had agreed that William should be told first, both as the elder son and as Kate's husband. His reaction would likely determine how they approached Harry and the rest of the family. Charles made the call himself, asking William to come alone to Clarence House for what he described as a private family matter of some importance. William arrived within the hour, his expression serious as he was shown into Charles's study. The room was filled with the weight of royal history, portraits of past monarchs, ancient books on statecraft, and the accumulated wisdom of centuries of royal decision-making. It seemed an appropriate setting for the conversation they were about to have. "Father, what's this about?" William asked, taking a seat in one of the leather chairs across from Charles's desk. "Your call sounded quite urgent." Charles looked at his elder son, seeing not just the future king but the little boy who had once clung to Diana's hand at public events. The ring that had brought such joy to those childhood moments was about to resurface, carrying with it years of hidden truths and careful omissions. "William, what I'm about to tell you involves your mother and a secret that Camilla and I have been carrying for many years," Charles began carefully. "Before I explain, I want you to understand that everything we did was motivated by a desire to protect you and Harry from additional pain during an already difficult time." William's posture stiffened, his lawyer's instincts immediately recognizing the gravity of his father's words. "What kind of secret?" Charles reached into his desk drawer and withdrew the velvet box, placing it carefully on the surface between them. "It concerns something that belonged to your mother, something that Kate has been searching for." William's eyes widened as he recognized the implications. Mother's sapphire ring. Yes. Charles opened the box, revealing the ring that had been photographed countless times during Diana's public appearances. "It's been in Camilla's possession for several years, given to her by Sarah Ferguson according to your mother's final wishes." The silence that followed was profound. William stared at the ring as if trying to process not just its physical presence, but everything it represented. His face cycled through expressions that Charles remembered from his childhood: confusion, hurt, and the careful control that Diana had taught both her sons when dealing with difficult emotions. "How long have you known?" William asked finally, his voice carefully neutral. "Camilla told me last night. She's been carrying this burden alone, uncertain about how to honor your mother's wishes while protecting our family from additional conflict." William reached for the box, his hands trembling slightly as he lifted the ring into the light. "I remember this so clearly. Mother wore it to my school concerts, to hospital visits when Harry and I were ill. She said it was her hope ring, because the blue reminded her that clear skies always follow storms." Charles felt his throat tighten with emotion. These were memories he had never heard before, intimate moments between Diana and their sons that revealed the depth of her love and the meaning she had attached to seemingly simple objects. "There's more, William. Your mother left a message about the ring, about why she wanted it to eventually surface." Charles handed over Diana's note, watching his son's face as he read his mother's final words about love, truth, and the importance of understanding complete stories rather than comfortable half-truths. William read the note twice before setting it down carefully beside the ring. "She knew this would be difficult for all of us. She understood that healing sometimes requires confronting painful truths. But she also believed that you and Harry had the right to understand your complete heritage, including the parts that adults had tried to shield you from. Kate is going to be." William paused, searching for the right words. "She's going to feel vindicated." She suspected that someone in the family knew more about Mother's missing jewelry than they were admitting. But She's also going to be hurt that this secret was kept from her for so long. Charles leaned forward, his expression earnest. That's why we wanted to tell you first. Kate's research and her dedication to preserving your mother's memory for the grandchildren is admirable. She deserves to hear this truth from family, not discover it through archival research. William was quiet for several minutes, turning the ring over in his hands and occasionally glancing at Diana's note. Charles could see him working through the implications, considering how this revelation would affect not just Kate, but Harry, the grandchildren, and the family's public image. I need to understand something, William said eventually. Why did Mother give the ring to Sarah instead of making it part of her official estate? Why create this elaborate chain of secrecy? Charles had been dreading this question, knowing that answering it honestly would require him to acknowledge difficult truths about his marriage to Diana and the circumstances surrounding her death. Your mother was very ill in her final months, not physically, but emotionally. The pressures of public life, the constant scrutiny of her relationships, the battles over custody and financial arrangements, all of it was taking a severe toll. She was planning something, wasn't she? This wasn't just about preserving a piece of jewelry. I believe your mother was trying to ensure that certain truths would eventually surface, but only when the family was strong enough to handle them. She knew that her death would leave many questions unanswered, many relationships unhealed. The ring was her way of creating a bridge between the past and the future. William stood and walked to the window, still holding the ring as he looked out at the gardens where he and Harry had once played as children. She was always thinking several steps ahead. Even when she seemed most vulnerable, she was planning for our welfare. That's exactly right. This ring wasn't just about preserving a memory. It was about ensuring that you and Harry would eventually understand that love existed even in the midst of all the conflict and pain. Love between whom? William asked, turning back to face his father. Charles took a deep breath, knowing that this conversation was leading them into territory they had never fully explored. Between all of us, William, your mother loved you, and Harry absolutely. I loved her, despite our incompatibility. She understood that I loved Camilla, even when that love caused everyone pain. And she wanted you to know that these complicated feelings didn't diminish anyone's worth or commitment to family. William returned to his chair, setting the ring carefully on the desk between them. Kate is going to want to know every detail of how this came to light. She's going to ask questions about timing, about why now, about what other secrets might still be hidden. And those are fair questions. We've made mistakes in trying to protect the family from difficult truths. Perhaps it's time to trust that you and Harry and Kate are strong enough to handle the complete story of our family's history. There's something else, isn't there? Something you haven't told me yet. Charles was amazed by his son's intuition. William had always been perceptive, but years of legal training had sharpened his ability to recognize when important information was being withheld. Your mother's note mentions that love always finds a way, but it also suggests that truth has a way of surfacing when least expected. I believe she anticipated that this moment would come, that Kate's research would eventually lead to questions that we couldn't answer without revealing the ring's existence. You think Mother orchestrated this somehow? I think your mother understood that secrets have their own timeline, that they eventually demand to be acknowledged regardless of our preferences. She gave us the ring as a gift, but also as a responsibility to choose healing over continuing concealment. William picked up Diana's note again, reading it more carefully. She mentions that the children deserve to know that love is more powerful than any crown or title. She's talking about George, Charlotte, and Louis, isn't she? Not just Harry and me. Your mother never met her grandchildren, but she knew they would exist someday. She wanted them to understand that their heritage includes both the privileges and the complexities of royal life. The ring represents that complexity, the beauty and the pain, the love and the conflict, all existing together. Kate is going to cry when she sees this, William said softly. She's been so frustrated by the gaps in Mother's story, so determined to give the children a complete picture of their grandmother. This ring will answer many of her questions, but it will also raise new ones. Are you prepared for those new questions? William was quiet for a long moment, studying his father's face. I think the real question is whether you and Camilla are prepared. This revelation is going to change how Kate and Harry see both of you. They're going to wonder what other secrets you've been keeping, what other truths you've decided they weren't ready to handle. Charles felt the weight of his son's words. The decision to reveal Diana's ring was just the beginning. It would open doors to conversations they had been avoiding for years, questions about the breakdown of his marriage to Diana, about the role Camilla had played in those events, and about the choices they had all made in trying to protect the family from additional scandal. "We're prepared to be completely honest," Charles said firmly. "Your mother was right. Secrets are more dangerous than difficult truths. If this ring opens the door to healing, then we owe it to her memory and to our family to walk through that door together." William smiled for the first time since entering the room. Mother would be proud of that decision. She always said that courage wasn't about avoiding difficult situations. It was about facing them with love and honesty. As William prepared to leave with the ring, carrying it home to share with Kate, both men understood that they were stepping across a threshold. The carefully constructed boundaries between past and present were about to dissolve, and the royal family would finally have to confront the complete truth about love, loss, and the prices they had all paid for their choices. The ring, nestled once again in its velvet box, was about to fulfill Diana's final wish. The healing could finally begin. William drove home to Kensington Palace with Diana's ring secured carefully in his jacket pocket, his mind racing with thoughts about how to present this revelation to Kate. He knew his wife well enough to predict her reaction. Initial shock, followed by a flood of questions, then the methodical pursuit of every detail until she understood the complete story. Kate's dedication to uncovering the truth had made this moment inevitable, and now William had to help her process the magnitude of what they were about to discover. Kate was in the nursery with Louis when William arrived, reading stories while their youngest son recovered from a mild cold. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a peaceful glow over the domestic scene that William was about to disrupt with revelations from the past. "How was your meeting with your father?" Kate asked, looking up from the picture book she'd been reading. "You were gone longer than expected." William sat beside her on the small sofa, noting how Louis immediately climbed into his lap with the casual affection of a secure child. For a moment, he considered delaying this conversation, protecting this peaceful family moment from the complexity that was about to unfold. "Kate, what I'm about to tell you is going to answer many of the questions you've been asking about Mother's jewelry. But it's also going to raise new questions about our family that we'll need to work through together." Kate's expression immediately became alert and focused. She had the instincts of someone who had spent years navigating the complexities of royal life, and she recognized the gravity in William's tone. "Did your father know something about the ring?" "More than that." William reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew the velvet box. "They had the ring, Kate. Camilla has had it for years." The silence that followed was profound. Kate stared at the box as if it contained something dangerous, her mind clearly processing the implications of William's words. Louis, sensing the change in atmosphere, looked curiously between his parents before returning his attention to his picture book. "They had it," Kate repeated slowly. "All this time, while I've been searching archives and contacting Diana's friends and trying to piece together what happened to her most treasured possessions, they had it." William opened the box, revealing the sapphire and diamond ring that had become the focus of Kate's research. The sight of it seemed to hit her like a physical blow, her eyes filling with tears as she recognized the piece she had seen in so many photographs of Diana with her children. "How?" she whispered. William explained everything his father had told him: Sarah Ferguson's role as intermediary, Diana's final message about love and truth, Camilla's years of carrying this secret burden. He showed Kate Diana's note, watching as she read the words that had been written specifically for this moment. "She knew," Kate said after reading the note twice. Diana knew that someday someone would ask these questions, would search for these missing pieces of her story. She planned for this moment. "It appears so. Father believes that your research, your determination to give the children a complete picture of their grandmother, was exactly what Mother hoped would happen. She wanted these truths to surface when the family was ready to handle them." Kate stood and walked to the window, still holding the ring as she processed this information. Louis followed her, wrapping his small arms around her legs in the instinctive way children comfort their parents during difficult moments. "I feel manipulated," Kate said finally. "Not by Diana. I understand what she was trying to accomplish. But by your father and Camilla. They let me spend months researching, asking questions, contacting archivists, and Diana's friends. They watched me search for answers they already possessed." William had expected this reaction, knowing that Kate's sense of justice would be offended by what could appear to be deliberate deception. They were trying to protect the family from additional pain. Camilla was put in an impossible position, holding on to something that belonged to Mother while knowing that revealing it could damage relationships she had worked years to build. But don't you see how this makes me question everything else? If they kept this secret for so long, what other truths are they hiding? What other pieces of Diana's story have been carefully concealed? The question hung in the air between them, and William realized that his father had been right to anticipate this moment. Revealing the ring was just the beginning of a larger conversation about family secrets, about the decisions that had been made to protect certain people from uncomfortable truths. Kate, I think that's exactly what Mother wanted us to ask. Not to create conflict, but to encourage us to be more honest with each other about our family's history. Kate returned to the sofa, sitting beside William as Louis continued to play nearby. The ring rested between them like a bridge between generations, carrying the weight of Diana's hopes for her family's future. I want to hear the complete story from Camilla herself, Kate said firmly. If she's been the keeper of this secret, then she needs to explain her decisions directly. I need to understand not just what happened, but why she chose to handle it the way she did. That's fair. Father suggested that we all meet together. You, me, Harry, Meghan, Charles, and Camilla. One conversation where everything is laid out honestly, where we can ask any questions we need to ask. And Harry? How do you think he's going to react to learning that his stepmother has been hiding one of his mother's most precious possessions? William had been wondering about this himself. Harry's relationship with the royal family remained complicated, especially regarding anything that touched on Diana's memory. The revelation about the ring could be seen as healing or as another example of institutional secrecy that had kept him from his full inheritance. I think Harry will understand Mother's intentions, even if he's initially angry about the secrecy. The note makes it clear that this wasn't about keeping the ring from us permanently. It was about ensuring it surfaced at the right moment. Kate picked up the ring, studying its intricate details as she considered the generations of royal drama it had witnessed. George asks about Diana constantly. He wants to know what she was like, what she believed in, how she treated people. This ring could help me tell him those stories in a more meaningful way. That's exactly what Mother wanted. She mentions in her note that the children deserve to understand their heritage completely, including the difficult parts. Charlotte is already so interested in jewelry and fashion. She would love to hear about how Diana chose this ring, what it meant to her, why she wore it to special occasions. Kate paused, her expression softening. But Louis will grow up knowing these stories from the beginning. He won't have to wonder about missing pieces of his grandmother's life. William watched his wife process this revelation, seeing her move from anger and hurt toward understanding and even gratitude. Kate had always possessed the ability to see beyond immediate emotions to larger patterns and purposes, a quality that made her particularly effective in her royal role. There's something else we need to consider, Kate said after several minutes of quiet reflection. The public dimension of this. Diana's jewelry has always been a subject of intense interest. If this ring is going to be returned to family use, people are going to notice and ask questions. What are you suggesting? I think we need to tell the complete story publicly, not just within the family. Diana's note talks about truth having a way of surfacing when least expected. If we control how this information becomes public, we can honor her memory while also being honest about the complexity of royal family relationships. William considered this suggestion, recognizing its wisdom. Royal families had often suffered more from attempted cover-ups than from initial revelations. Being proactive about sharing difficult truths had proven more effective than waiting for journalists or historians to uncover secrets independently. You want to make an official statement about the ring's return? I want to tell Diana's story completely, including this final chapter. Your mother was an extraordinary woman who loved her children deeply and wanted her legacy to promote healing rather than continued conflict. That's a story worth sharing. As the afternoon progressed into evening, William and Kate began planning how they would share this revelation with the rest of the family, and eventually with the public. The ring that had been hidden for so many years was about to become a symbol of reconciliation and the possibility that even the most complicated family relationships could find resolution through honesty and love. Diana's final gift was more than a piece of jewelry. It was a roadmap for healing that had taken years to unfold. Her sons were about to learn that their mother's legacy included not just her public work and personal warmth, but also her strategic wisdom about family relationships and the courage required to face difficult truths together. When Charles called that evening to check on their reactions, Kate answered the phone herself. Charles, I understand why you and Camilla kept this secret, and I'm grateful that Diana trusted your family to know when the time was right to reveal it. Now let's plan how we're going to honor her wishes and help this family heal. The ring, nestled safely in its velvet box, seemed to pulse with satisfaction. Diana's final plan was working exactly as she had hoped, bringing her family together through the very complications that had once threatened to tear them apart. Love had indeed found a way, and truth had surfaced at exactly the right moment to promote healing rather than additional pain. The royal family was about to discover that their greatest strength lay not in maintaining perfect public images, but in their willingness to face their imperfections together with courage and love. Diana's final gift had made that discovery possible.